Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. All right, welcome to Not So Breakfast Show today, the podcast for leadership and career development. And today we are talking about building great team dynamics, but maybe we should call it the one that's same but different, because we have hit this topic before, episode 37, if you want to double down on it, because we reference an episode that we thought we'd done called the one about building high-performing teams, but it turns out it had the same title as this one. But that's all right, this is new content, it's got some stuff in there around how to connect with your team and how to build great team dynamics. We also finally understand the strategy behind how Chris and Sasha won the tennis tournament.
So if you imagine we're receiving the serve and I'm on the right-hand side of the court and he's receiving the serve, and he just kept saying to me, oh, just move a bit further right, babe. Just move a bit further right. And what he was actually doing was just moving me off the court entirely. So he would play singles against the other couple.
Plus a whole lot of other good stuff. So that's the show. Let's get it. The microphone that picks up every little detail. Right. Even you think, I can hear you thinking.
Yeah, pretty slow today.
All right, welcome to Not So Breakfast Show today. And this is the one about building great team dynamics. How do you build a team that gets along and gets stuff done? And we're going to discuss all things teams with one of the best teammates I have, Sasha Coburn. How the hell are you?
Yes, I'm doing real great. I'm pumped to talk about how to build a team. And I'm also super pumped to talk about how to be part of a team. I had a really great opportunity on Saturday night to be part of this thing called Coach for Life Foundation. I was just the MC of it, but it's some really wealthy and generous business people in New Zealand. John Tanner and his wife Sue, they've donated $1 million to try and raise the standard of coaching for youth sport. And they really want to grow young people in sport because young people drop out of sport. And there were so many athletes there sharing stories about being part of amazing teams. And it made me reflect on the fact that there's hardly any teams that I'm a part of now. I have a work team, but it's different when you're in charge of it compared to being a member of a team. And when you say, great teammate, I just look back so fondly on those times when we were working on projects together. And I think when you get the dynamics of a team right, oh my God, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you just have a great time, you do good work, everyone's fulfilled, everyone contributes. And our challenge as leaders and as team members is like, how can we do that more often? How can we make that a thing?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we underestimate how many teams we are actually part of because, you think about, oh, it's my team. Well, it must be my work team. But then there'll be subsets of that team. You might be part of a wider management team, or you might be part of a wider department team, or you might have individual teams that you're part of and they're just on a project and they're just for a moment of time. But basically those team dynamics of what makes a great team probably are consistent and stay true, no matter if it's just a team for a situation or whether it's a team for an ongoing work environment.
Yeah, and in lots of respects, our families are teams. And we're a team now. As you and me, we're a team.
Yeah.
We're the Not So Breakfast podcast team.
That's it. And, and our dynamic works because we both bring strengths to it. We know what our position is. We know where we add value. We know what we do. And then within your work team, and we want to talk about this, is like, how do you, if you're a leader in your team, how do you create a great team dynamic by enabling that? And if you're part of a team, how do you step up to operate in a team dynamic and be able to just pull individuals or great individuals together to be high performing? One of the reasons I thought this would be a great topic, and for the life of me, I can't remember where it came from. It was either a podcast or a book or an article. It was probably a podcast, knowing me, Sash. I'd probably know if it was a book because I'd go, hey, remember that thing I read?
I read the newspaper today.
But they were talking about a book, and it's called The Numbers Game, by Chris Anderson and David Sally. And they, in this book, proposed this idea of having strong link teams and weak link teams. And it's basically all to do with sport. And they gave the analogy of two different sports that really talk to these characteristics of teams. So a strong link team is a sport like basketball. And the way basketball is set up, or what they allude to, is that basically basketball is about getting the best player you can get. Because if you've got a great player, even in amongst average players, that player can make a massive difference to the team. All you've got to do is get them the ball and they'll just do their thing, right? They'll run up the court, they'll score, they'll do all that stuff. And we've seen that throughout history where there's just been amazing players that have just dominated within a team. Then they're referred to weak link teams. So this is sports like football, which is basically, it doesn't matter if you have a star player on that field. If the rest of the team is not at a level where they can get them the ball, that they can pass them the ball, it doesn't matter how good that individual is, they'll just get eaten up on the field. And you're really only as strong as your weakest link within football. So if you've got people that can't play their position well, that leaves gaps, as opposed to basketball where they can probably wrap that up a little bit differently. So I found that interesting, because what football will tend to do is they will recruit for depth. So they're trying to recruit a deep bench of a whole lot of talent that can play well together, as opposed to basketball that is basically recruiting the best individuals they can and then trying to get those individuals to play as a team, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I just wondered, big numbers, whether there was a corollary between the number of players on a team to how much one player has an impact. So if you just have one strong player and a small number like 5 on the basketball, maybe that's part of it. And then this in my head, I went, no, that doesn't work. Because if you're playing doubles in tennis and the person playing with is shit, then you're out. There's nothing that one person can do on their own. But that does remind me, remember when me and Chris won the mixed doubles plate at the Sumner Championships? Remember me telling you about that? And
I do.
What happened is when we played, so if you imagine we're receiving the serve and I'm on the right-hand side of the court, and he's receiving the serve, and he just kept saying to me, oh, just move a bit further right, babe. Just move a bit further right. And what he was actually doing was just moving me off the court entirely. So he would play singles against the other couple, and that's how we won. And it was a genius move. So sometimes one player can make all the difference. This is not the point you're making, and so now it's not a very good team player of me to take over the conversation. So I'm just going to just throw the ball back to you.
But I think even within that, you can use the analogy of, I think there are times where individuals might need to step up and perform at a level, but trying to keep them engaged and not do it in a way that completely destroys the culture. So what they also alluded to in this was that you can have your A player who comes in, and if they're just an asshole, if they are just, oh, well, Sally, she's great on the team because she gets all the sales and we just ignore all the fact that she just craps on everybody else. You are better to have a whole lot of average individuals that have learnt to play well together and are better as a result of that than have an average team with one star performer who basically is holding everybody back because of what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole Super Rugby team, the most successful Super Rugby team ever, the Crusaders. That's their whole ethos. They wanted to be a champion team, not necessarily a team of champions. And they really spent a lot of time developing their culture so that whenever a new player came in, they just got inculcated into this way of life, what it meant to be a Crusader. And it was very detailed. It wasn't just like, oh, we bleed for our teammates. There was lots of structure and systems around it that just made it this beast that every player that went to play for them played at their best, and they had amazing results.
And we've probably seen that play out in our careers with Les Mills or in other things that we've done, where we've just seen teams that have just had one dysfunctional individual that is forgiven all sins because of their performance, but actually at the detriment of everybody else. So there's this massive turnover that's happening in behind them. And probably if businesses really looked at the operational cost of holding this person up on their pedestal, it would definitely outweigh their performance. And then we've seen other teams, and we've been part of other teams, where it's everybody's individual effort being put together that's got the job done. And people have just wanted to do it. They step up more, right? You put in way more work when you enjoy who you work with and when you know you add value and you know where you fit. as opposed to, well, I'll just do the minimum amount of work possible to not get my head shot off.
Yeah, that's that whole concept I love of discretionary energy and discretionary effort, that people will do the job and then they'll do more than what is necessary. And that's a choice that people make. So one of the questions when we look at high-performing team systems is we say, under what circumstances and under what conditions will people voluntarily go that little bit extra? And that's not for an organization to say, oh, how do we bleed our people dry? It actually give something back to the person when you are prepared and willing to make that effort. It becomes much more satisfying. I mean, you and I think of teams that we've been on where we've had to carry people, like Anna. I hope one day she listens. And if you listen, Anna, give us a ring. We miss you, babe.
Yeah, we want to have you on the show.
We want you back on the team.
Actually, before we start getting into maybe the how do we build great team dynamics and some strategies around that, I think it's worth revisiting a topic we've talked about before, a concept we've talked about before. And there's an episode, if you want to go back through the backlogs, it's the one about building high-performing teams. And we talk about a concept called FSNIP, which I've always tried to patent as the short term, which never catches on. But it's an acronym that basically talks about different stages of team development. And the first stage, or the primary stage, is forming. And in the forming stage, it's sometimes referred to as the honeymoon period, where basically everybody is on their best behavior. We are just going, who do we need? Who could we put in this team? What is their role? What are you going to do? What am I going to do? And everybody is playing nice because we've only just met maybe, or we're just in those initial stages. But once you get through the forming stage, then you'll often go into the storming stage. And the storming stage is where people's personality might start to come out. We've got over the fact that we need to be nice. We're now working and some things aren't going right and there's a little bit of niggle. As leaders, we need to recognize that we may just be in a storming stage and that's okay. We just need to work it out and we need to move on. But when you're in it, sometimes you might be thinking there's something wrong with this team. Now, it may not be true. It could just be storming. It's a stage you need to move through. And the more mature the team is, the better leader, the faster that stage can happen and go through.
Yeah, and this is why I love people being self-aware and understanding, how they like to work, and also understanding what some of the conditions are where they don't work well. And if they know what those are, then that's great. So I've got some people in my team at Coffee Culture, and we've really clearly identified, when do we all do our best work? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? And there's no judgment that's attached to that. That's just saying use the time when you're at your best to do the hardest things. Get those things done, because that's where you know you can really perform. But if somebody asks you to do something at 4:00 and you're just about to leave, you don't want to feel like you're letting someone down by saying, buddy, I've been here since 6, I'm going. But equally, that person shouldn't ask you to do something at 4 p.m. We've got to be more organized than that. So if you can understand each other's energy preferences and time preferences, all that helps. And having established values and behaviors where you go, this is what we do and don't accept in our team, that helps reduce the ickiness of the storming. And again, if you go back to something like the Crusaders as a model, it's very clear induction. This is what it means to be a Crusader. This is what you are buying into. This is what it looks like. This is how we support you. So it's not that it becomes a cult, but it's that people have very clear expectations of what it's going to be like.
Yeah, so we've got our forming stage, get together, storming stage, maybe some niggles showing. But once those resolve, we get into norming. And norming is where we're working, we know what each other does, we know who does what, and we are trucking along, also known as maybe business as usual. Like we just know how it works. Problem comes up, we resolve it, we basically keep on trucking. Now the trick is to get into that high performing stage is to shift gear, because we need to get into the next stage from norming to performing, which is where a team can basically do more than the sum of its parts. It's the team, as we said before, it's a team of individuals that have got together towards a common goal. And that's really where we want to shift as leaders. We're pushing, we're coaching, we're creating opportunities for our team to excel. And then as individuals, we're stepping up to the best version of ourselves, coming to play every single time, coming to work with our best intentions. And that's really where that performance sets in.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned earlier that we've got much longer episode about this building high-performing team that people can look at. And how cool was it when we got the feedback earlier this week about a guy who's just started listening, he's binging them, he's up to episode 3.
Shout out, Aaron, how are you?
Yay, Aaron. I'm like, dude, there's 80 more to go. You've got a lifetime of listening ahead of you. And I saw, this was interesting for me, thinking about us as a teamish. I went back to the podcast. We've been doing this for nearly 2 years now.
Wow.
That's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And do you think we are forming, storming, norming, or performing as our little podcast team?
I think we're stepping up into performing.
Oh, because I was thinking about the things that I know that annoy you, and I still do them. So I've, even just as we've been preparing for this episode, I'm like, oh, you need to be a better team member to Ish, because you know what upsets them, and you're still useless at those things.
But because we're through the storming stage, we just know how each other work, and we know how each other think. We know exactly where we're going to meet. There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to be on screen at 3:30, and we're going to bring it regardless.
3:30-ish, right?
Yeah,
3:30-ish.
3:30-ish, regardless of whether there was no conversation for the rest of the day earlier. But that's the strength thing that we start to bring, and that's why I think you and I together, when we operate together, we're in our strengths, and really that's what pushes us to that high performing. And of course, when someone else joins the team, if Anna did join the team,
welcome, Anna. Maybe Aaron.
Maybe Aaron could join the team.
Hey, Aaron.
What can happen is you can often slip back into storming because you've got a new person, you've got a different work style, or if someone was replaced within a team that's been around for a long time, and then suddenly you've got this new person. Well, yeah, you've got to adjust your work style. You've got to adjust your behaviors. We've got new personalities in the mix, and we need to make sure that we can actually deliver what we need to deliver, go through the storming, get back to norming, and then push on to performing. Can you hear my dog crying?
You know what? I was just thinking, if that is Emma coming home singing, then okay, she sounds like a dog whimpering, but it's your dog. It's your puppy.
It's the dog, because Joe has got home and the dog can see you through the window, and the door is shut, and now the dog is whimpering, going, why can't I go see Joe? All right, I'm going to open the door so Molly can get out.
Just sounds like a lovesick little puppy. Oh, hey guys, Ish has left, and so I just want to tell you this thing while he's gone to sort out the dog. I could never replace him on this team. If he leaves, that's it. We're over. Oh, Ish, mate, hi. How's the dog?
Oh, hey, Sash. Yeah, dog's good. It's with Joe now. It's in its happy place. I am always second for that dog, which is good because, you know me and animals. Okay, so that's been some good context, but I think now we should have a look at tactics around building great team dynamics. One of the things that I think works really well is to try to build consistency and some rituals that you can kind of build in as you start to shape what the culture of the team is. Consistency is so crucial for a lot of people. People might say, oh, I like to be spontaneous. We're not really talking about that. We're just talking about cadence of meetings, cadence of comms, cadence of how we're going to debrief things or how we're going to talk about stuff. That consistency, or even the rituals around how you start a meeting, how you end a meeting, all that kind of stuff builds trust, it builds consistency, and it builds certainty into a team. When everything is just all over the place all the time, it's really hard to relax. Whereas at least actually, there's something happening later in the week where we get to talk about that later on. That consistency and those rituals can be a massive part of what makes a really great team dynamic.
Really useful, I think, to reflect on what are things that you do deliberately as rituals, what are the mantras that you use, how do you let people know that they are part of the team, how do you welcome people to your team, how do you exit people. We got a couple of brand new people at Coffee Culture this past month. We've got a maternity leave position that we're filling. And I've just been so proud of how people have just embraced the new ones and how well the new ones have been sensitive to not stepping on people's toes and are just, I'm not down there all the time, so it might not be perfect. They might be emailing me and going, Sash, it's actually a bloodbath. But it looks and feels like, because people have brought their consciousness to, hey, it's always going to be a little bit tricky, we're just being really kind with each other and deliberate about we need the new people to be great. So everybody is working to teach them everything we know as fast as we can to get them up to speed. There's not a single person in our building, we have about 13 or 14 in our head office, that wants any of our new people to not succeed. We all want our new people to be amazing because that's going to help us all.
Another one would be to build personal connections with your team. I think for a while there was a work philosophy that was like, home is home, work is work, and don't bring your shit anywhere near work. And really it's become that work-life integration. You know, people are expected to be on and available a lot more. And because of the platforms, you're on and available a lot more. And in the past, it's been when things aren't right, we do the team building event. But building personal connection is really, who are people? You know, what's going on in their lives as well as their work performance? You know, can you have conversations about the weekend and just what went on? Why does it always have to be about work? I think the stronger our relationships are, when things get tough, it is much easier to resolve if there's a personal connection there than if there has only ever been work dynamic.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there are organisations and people that take a different view of this. I know a lot of people who work in government departments and the public service. They're like, I'm never in a million years going to hug a workmate. My business is my business. And I'm like, good for you, but don't come and work in organisations where people do want to connect. And I know that I could never work in an organisation where there was that kind of boundary, because I'm just my whole self all day, every day. And my whole self means I'm also a mum. I'm also... no, that's all I am. I'm a mum. I'm a daughter. I'm going to answer the phone if my dad rings. So that fullness of who you are just gives people an insight into what makes you tick and helps them understand your pressures. And I love what you're saying, you know, that cadence, that rhythm of things. If you can be respectful in your team that, hey, it's school holidays. So people that have got young kids are just battling through those 2 weeks, trying to get them all cared for and looked after. So your knowledge of a person's personal life helps you be a better teammate.
Another one is create a platform where you can have some honest communication and that you have opportunities to have that honest communication. I think sometimes when you are asking for feedback on something and you are quite in a, let's say, a high power position, so you've got a lot of authority in the decisions that you make, there's a lot of mana there, there's a lot of respect for you. What can happen is you get lip service. Yes. So you get people agreeing with the idea because they don't want to either offend you or they don't want to be putting their head out of the foxhole and getting it shot off. And then there's a whole lot of other conversations that happen after the meeting, right? The meeting after the meeting. So we want to have a chance where you've set a platform to say, it's actually okay for you to disagree, or it's actually okay for you to tell me what your opinion is, because then we can discuss it and then we can maybe disagree but commit moving forward.
It's much easier said than done. I find that, because often leaders will say, yeah, I'm really open to all of your ideas. And then they just go with their own idea every time anyway.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I try and be conscious of is I have a tendency to railroad people with my ideas. What about this? What about that? Let's do this. And that's because I want to move quickly. But so often when you're making choices, there's no right answer. So let someone else have a turn. And as I've kind of moved on in my career, it's such a joy when someone else makes a decision. Yeah. Or someone else has an idea. You go, oh, thank you. Phew. Because you can't You can't do all of the things all of the time. I mean, I spoke at a conference last week with a group of accountants in New Zealand, and they're having a big focus on well-being. And I was really forced to reflect, when you talk about bringing your whole self to work. And I think it's really easy in some organizations or some roles, like if you're largely office-bound and you're not customer-facing all of the time, then a colleague comes in and they're having a bad day. You can pause for a moment, have a chat, be there for them, make them a cup of tea. That's great. The reality in our frontline hospitality in the coffee shops is we used to say, don't bring your baggage to work with you. Leave your baggage at the door. If you broke up with your boyfriend, okay, that's sad, but you actually just have to come and smile at people today because that's the job.
Mm.
And as there's been increased awareness of mental health and well-being and what it means to care for each other as teams, what we tend to say is, don't bring your baggage to work. Just leave your baggage at the door. If you've broken up with your boyfriend, that's sad, but we still need you to come and smile. And it's kind of like the rules have stayed the same. We just try and express it more softly. And it's a real challenge for me to think about how can we give people the space to be all of themselves within our team when in those customer-facing roles, like a critical part of what you do is to smile and say good day to people. And it's really, I'm interested in your feedback on that because it's not straightforward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think sometimes in my experience, it's best to actually front foot and give the context for a situation that's going on rather than using it as the excuse for the behavior. So it might be if you have got something heavy going on at home, you can say to the you start to laugh.
I'm laughing because I think what you're going to say is that everyone that comes up to the counter, we're going to say that the team member says, I'm so sorry, I've just broken up with my boyfriend. Did you want sugar in your flat white? Is that what you're about to say? We just
it's like you're reading my mind. No.
T-shirt printed. Sack of sad today.
So no more that the conversation is had maybe with your manager to say this is going on for me at the moment. I am trying to bring my best, but this is the situation. Rather than you're in it, you lose it, and then you're having to go back.
Yeah, trying to explain it later. Yeah, that makes sense.
Retrofill that back in.
Yes. Yes. Nice.
But, hey, man, if you want to sell a few more cookies, just cry.
Yeah, 100%.
Actually, just on that, when you're trying to get maybe create a platform of honesty or feedback, if you are high power, so quite high up in the company, sometimes doing it via a third party is quite good. So you could ask someone else who may have interacted with that team more, could you ask this question of the team and get their feedback and then bring it back to me? You're probably more likely to get an honest response because maybe the person who's asking the team, they feel a bit safer giving the information direct to them. And then over time, you could feed it back and then maybe you could actually work your way into be the person that actually asked the question in the first place. But if you're the CEO or the manager that's been really pretty hard or hasn't responded well in the past, to suddenly walk into a meeting and go, hey, we're going to have honest feedback session, I can tell you how that session's going to go.
I think it's funny too because the reality is if you're a woman on the internet, everyone tells you what they think about you all day, every day anyway. You're ugly. Thanks, mate. I wasn't asking for your feedback, but cheers.
Oh, man. Well, just when you did that, you posted something about the mayor in Hamilton.
Oh, the mayor in Hamilton. Yeah, my friend Paula. She's the mayor at the time of recording. The local body elections are on at the moment. So she has death threats. She has people that threaten her children and her family. It's really scary stuff. One of the guys, so we live in Hamilton, it's like in the middle of New Zealand, about an hour out of Wellington. And so when the police get involved, sometimes these are just people in faraway places banging away on the internet in their mama's garage.
Yeah. Well, Joe and I were out for a walk the other day and we were listening to a podcast, a little cute thing we do, share our earbuds, one in each ear.
Is it our podcast?
Well, we do listen to our podcast quite a bit, so, but no, it was a different podcast. And they kind of proposed this scenario where it was like, don't worry about what people think of you. Just don't look in the mirror in the morning and just get dressed and go to work. And Joe was like, yeah, well, you can tell that person's a male. just the whole perception.
Yeah, part of that high-performing team is to understand how much work your girlfriends have done to even get to work in the morning. Or, all those, those guys who are massively into grooming, or people that are all, gender fluid across the spectrum. It's not just as straightforward as going, I roll out of bed and I chuck my suit on.
Another one would be ensure people feel they fit within a team and they know where they add value. So I think when you're positioning, especially in that forming stage, it's really important that we haven't just brought someone into a team for the sake of either filling a space or for what we think that team might need. I mean, sometimes that has to happen, but it's really important to know what they're delivering, where they fit, how they fit, what they're adding value, and that is then communicated back to the team. Because the more clear you are at the beginning, the less the storming stage has to be there, because then the storming may just be work style or personality, as opposed to, why did we just hire this person? I feel like I'm doing their job. Or have you hired them to replace me?
It's that whole thing where you go, let's not just employ for people who fit. Let's have cultures where more different types of people can fit. And that's about being deliberate, about being welcoming and inclusive, and remembering when each of us has had a first day at school, or a first day at a new office, or a first day starting in a new city. What are the things that would have made that transition easier? And let's make sure we're doing those as a matter of practice to welcome people and inculcate them into our teams.
And my last tip for kind of creating great team dynamics is create opportunity for engagement. And really, when it comes to engagement tends to ramp. So if you have been doing a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting and you have started the meeting, but you were waiting for everybody to jump in and no one was talking for about 5 minutes, and then you're into the meeting and then you want them to discuss stuff and ask questions, sometimes it's hard to get them to actually start engaging because they started from a cold platform. Whereas actually, if you were online and you're 5 minutes early and people start jumping in and you ask them about their day, how's it going? Did you watch the show last night? Did you watch the rugby game? You just start that conversation going, and then people come in and they join in, and then you welcome them to the call, and then you ask them about that, and then you're joking about something else. By the time the call goes, there's a natural energy that's happened. And then when you start to go for that engagement, it just is so much easier. It's not like pulling teeth, because you didn't go in cold. You've actually come in a little bit warmer, and then you can build up to a really great team dynamic meeting. All right, so hopefully you have got something in there around building team dynamics. So I'd encourage you to go back through the shows, wade your way through, find the one about building high-performing teams if you want a little bit more information on that. But basically, forming, storming, norming, performing, really good context. Think about whether we are trying to build depth within our teams or whether we are celebrating outstanding individuals that may be at the detriment of our teams. How do we build consistency in rituals? How do we build personal connection, have honest conversation, create engagement, and also ensure people fit? They know where they add value and they know where they belong.
And think about, if you're a team member, if you can see that someone's trying to do something to just improve the team dynamic, recognize that and be a yes, I can help. Don't be someone who sits on the sideline and goes, oh, I can see that Ish is trying to make us do that dumb game again.
That game,
like,
honestly.
Bloody game.
Get a new game.
It's like, get in there. Do it, man. Be part of it. Be part of what's going on. Get involved. Get in there.
So, Sash, reading anything good?
Well, you know what? I'm going back and rereading some books, because one of the world's greatest living writers, she's not living because she's just died. So she died unexpectedly. Her name was Hilary Mantel, and she won the Booker Prize a couple of times in a row. She's written this amazing series about Henry VIII and all his wives in Tudor England. It's incredible. But the thing I wanted to share about her, which is amazing, is that she's a really great example of her publishing company backed her and said, you're a great writer. You haven't written a great hit yet, but you've got a great hit in you. So we're just going to support you and nurture you, and eventually you'll write the good one. And she wrote 3 massive hits. And I was just thinking about that in terms of how we relate to our children, how we develop talent through teenagers, how we develop talent at work, where we go, you've got great talent, oh, but you haven't come good, so maybe you're not all you cracked up to be. Versus saying, you've got great talent, you're working hard, the result will come. You'll crack it. Let's just keep iterating. Let's just keep at it and just be faithful to our talent and faithful to our craft, and the good stuff will come. And I thought that's actually a really nice frame. When you believe in people, just back the person and trust that their process will get them there.
Nice.
I think that's really nice.
I love that. That's real cool. Well, I'm still reading Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. For the
value, man. If you get a book and it takes you 6 months or a year, I like that. You're getting a lot of value from it.
I'm chipping away, get a couple more pages in, which is good. But no, I am actually really enjoying that. So I might, after this one, get into another autobiography.
Yeah, like you like stories about people's lives and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I'll pick one. So if you listen to the show and you know a great book that you think Ish would love this book, DM me about it. And Sash, if you know a good book, push it my way.
Well, my dad is writing his memoirs, so.
Oh yeah, okay. Put me down for your dad's book.
Yeah, wicked. That's one.
Are you in there? Is there like a chapter just on
Not
Sasha?
yet. He's like, he's not up to the point yet where I'm born. I don't think he's met Mum yet.
Oh, okay.
Still in primary school, I think.
It's going to be Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah, we're like, Mum and I are both like, hurry up, Dad, get to the good bit where we come onto the scene.